Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. In today's episode, I had the opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with Abhi Golhar. Now, that name may ring a bell because you've seen Abhi on one of our Friday forums, but you may know him from one of several different places, including he's been published in Forbes, in Huffington Post, in Inman. He is a national speaker. He is an investor and startup founder. He is the host of the Think Realty podcast. And most of all, he is a content accelerator. He's an amazing guy. We had a great conversation about how to build wealth through real estate investing. And if you're like me, you're always thinking about investing in real estate, but sometimes you need somebody to kind of help you out to think about what's the best strategy for your investment. You know, many of us want to make the right choice, and maybe we're a little bit timid or afraid to take that plunge. So today, Abhi is going to help us look at what's out there investment-wise through real estate, how to build wealth through real estate, and share his opinions on real estate investing. So let's get into it with Abhi, and we'll pick it up on the other side. Without further ado, my guest today is Abhi Golhar. Abhi, how you doing today?
Jason, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to offer some value and talk about investing. It's one of those topics that I love talking about. And it's one of those topics that's also, for a lot of agents out there, frankly, it's a little difficult to understand. And I guess that's why it's one of my favorite topics to talk about, because I love breaking it down to make it super easy. So you do an amazing job. I've listened to your podcast before. One great podcaster knows another greater podcaster, and I certainly appreciate the time today. So,
well, you are too kind, that's for sure. Because I told you right before we came on that I was literally watching your podcast, your interview on the podcast app. That was the first time I've ever seen that. So you are truly an innovator. And definitely a person that I look up to and respect. And every word that you say, I am zoned in on when it comes to our conversation today, because I myself am an investor, a novice investor. I want to do more of it. And I want to talk to you about, I think a lot of agents are in that same boat with me. And we want to know, okay, where do we start? Where do we begin? So my first question to you, assuming that we were to stay local and invest, one of my questions to you was, right now in the current market, is this a red flag for you, say in the Philly metro area, particularly maybe in the suburbs surrounding? Would you still invest? Or are there things that keep you away from those markets currently, obviously pricing being one of them? But is there a sound investment right now still in those markets that you would take a chance on?
Yeah, absolutely. I would not take a chance on Airbnb. Even though travel is coming back, a lot of Airbnb investors got screwed because they bought with this hyped. It's the artificial hyped inflationary environment that a lot of flippers will live in. So when value is really at 100,000, they're paying 130, thinking that they're going to have to put in 30, 40, 50, $60,000 in repairs just to make it an Airbnb property. But you know what? We had a black swan event. It was called COVID-19, and their returns, their yields went down the toilet because they didn't underwrite thinking that they're going to buy a single family rental long term. So you want to have that, just the backup strategy of a single family rental. When I look at Philadelphia and when I look at Pennsylvania, do I see any red flags there? No. Why? Because if I'm living in Philly, I live close enough to New York, to that corridor, where if I needed to get there, I could get there, and I'm not paying those prices. I'm also probably looking for acquisition price points anywhere between $175,000 and $250,000, which from a long-term rental perspective, if you have the right debt, don't go crazy on debt. Don't go like 90, 95. Like, don't just say, I'm going to put nothing down on this property and finance 100% of it. Put down 20 to 25%, go through the necessary underwriting criteria, and get yourself a loan anywhere between 5.5 and even if it's 7.5, 7.25 for a long-term rental, you'll be doing just fine. So no red flags from a Philly perspective, no red flags even from a Pennsylvania perspective. The red flags for me will start to come when I look at Baltimore, Maryland, when I start looking at Boston, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, these areas that are historically more expensive than your Philly market, that's when I have a challenge. Now, are there communities inside of Philly where you can buy $1 million house? Yeah. Do I recommend you buying $1 million house in Philly? No. Why do that? If you're going to do that, and if you have that much cash lying around because you were a $1 million a year producer for the last 3 years, like you, Jason, I would take a look at single family rentals, and I would keep my budget to my all-in cost of 150 to 200. Listen, this is a long-term game, right? We believe in the United States of America. I believe in the United States of America. I believe that this country is not going to go anywhere and lose its worldwide status for at least 200 years. And everybody wants to move here. So why not buy and hold? Here's a question for you, Jason. Would you have purchased property in 2018 BC before COVID?
I would have purchased property if I had the capital to do so. I would have purchased property at any point.
And you know what's crazy is every single time I'm on stage, or I'm talking to real estate agents, I ask the same question year after year, month after month. It's the same answer. So if we know that we should have purchased real estate today, 5 years from now, why aren't we doing that?
That is a fantastic point. I mean, I think that just drives home anytime that I get kind of nervous in this market, about overpaying and this and that. And, this is crazy. This community is now X amount of dollars over where it was last year. I think I want to go back because you touched upon price point in our area and kind of where to stick to. Can you elaborate on that? Why are you sticking to that price point? Why does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense because at the end of the day, I want my investment dollars to work for me. Listen, there's no point in overpaying unless you know something about your area that nobody else really does. An example of that is I live in Atlanta, and many, many years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Atlanta had a plan for the quarry. Essentially, the West End got a big quarry, and Atlanta back then, this was actually longer than 5, 6 years ago. They said, we're going to develop this area into residential. It's going to be community living, restaurants, bars, food, companies, everything on this West Side. So what did I do? I started buying property.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so did I mind paying a little extra? No, I didn't, because I knew long-term Atlanta is going to grow, and Atlanta, the path of progress was going west, and it was also going north. So it paid off. Now the quarry's completely built. There's a park that's 2 or 3 times the size of Piedmont Park. And if you've ever checked out Atlanta, Piedmont Park is this massive park, it's in Midtown, but it's a little east of Midtown, right off of Piedmont Avenue. That gamble worked. But was it a gamble really? Because I was trading on inside information. And ladies and gentlemen, inside information in real estate investing is absolutely legal. So if there's an opportunity in Philly where I know that the city or the county is going to build something, or they've proposed, they've proposed a big build or a park or something that's actually coming the next 3 years, they've authorized it. Would I be okay paying a little extra? Sure, but I can trade on that inside information if and only if I know something's going to happen. If it's not going to happen, and we know how politics work, sometimes they're over promises and sometimes they just don't deliver. Don't bet on that. That's why I stick to no more than a $250,000 price point. And in Atlanta, it's tough. You might find it difficult in Philly to buy at $250, then go elsewhere. And by elsewhere, I mean just look at neighborhoods outside of Philly is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I want to touch upon that as well, because, you talk about BC, right? Before COVID, the Philadelphia market was extremely hot back then. And not that it's not been hot through the pandemic. That's not what I'm saying. But we see, portions of the city cool because of the pandemic, right? It might be in the condo market. It might be, people moving out to the suburbs. Same with New York. We saw that with COVID. We saw a lot of people moving down our way, wanted to be outside of the city. Are you seeing people flocking back to the cities at this point? Are you seeing investment, being a good fit in the cities again, outside of the suburbs? The suburbs are what they are, but the cities, people were leaving the city. Now, are they coming back in terms of investing?
Yeah, they are, because people have money now. People have money. The economy's doing much better, and they want to spend it, and they don't mind spending on luxury. For me, it's a very simple formula. When you have a lot of economic activity, people are going to buy. What happens to GDP? It goes up. What happens to consumer confidence? It goes up. What happens to the want and the itch to buy something in the city for folks that don't want to overpay, or they don't want to commute 50 in Atlanta? Well, it depends on where you live in Atlanta. 50, if you go a mile, it takes like an hour and a half. Sometimes it's better if you just jumped on a little Lime scooter and just like all the way down. But I hate dealing with traffic. So am I going to pay the premium to live inside the city? Probably. Now, if I'm a parent and we have kids and the school district's important, am I going to go inner city for schools? Probably not. So I am, though, seeing like a major resurgence of Midtown Atlanta and downtown Atlanta. The same thing in Chicago, the same thing in Austin, Texas, the same thing in Dallas, Texas. I'm not surprised if Philadelphia is the same way.
So if we talk about just a good, sound investment for a first-time investor, right? And they're investing in the Philadelphia area. Let's say, they're an agent with our company. They want to look into something. Would you recommend starting off with, say, you had mentioned a single-family rental, right? Single-family rental. Do you recommend flipping? Do you recommend multifamily? Where is a good, sound place to start investment wise? Because I think it's that first one, right? A lot of times people get nervous, they don't want to make a mistake with their first investment. What do you think, or where do you think they should look right now in the Philly metro area in terms of investing? What type of home?
A single family rental. So a single family rental, because single family is the asset that appreciates the most.
Makes sense.
Condos, it's that simple, right? The condos, for me, they're not going to appreciate as much and I have to deal with HOA. Sometimes for single family rentals, your HOA isn't going to be that much of a factor. Like if you're investing in a super new community, it's a new build. Yeah, your HOA is going to be $200, $300, $400 a month. So stay away from that. Look at HOAs for single family where you're paying no more than $50, $100 a month. That's acceptable to me. And long-term single family rentals, if you want a piece, if you want to sell it, you can sell it. It is the most liquid investment in an illiquid asset class traditionally. This year has been a very interesting year. A couple of months ago, NAR said that the days on market was 0.6 months, guys. Right now, it's becoming a little more balanced. We're approaching the 2.5, 3 month mark, which is great. Which means that buyers are coming back and telling sellers, I'm not going to overpay for your crap. Like, what the heck? Like, you can't take advantage of me, which is fantastic news. At least for me in Atlanta. Okay. Like I can talk about Atlanta a whole lot because I'm not about to overpay here, but listen, single family is traditionally what you're looking for. Look for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. If you look at only a 2-bed, 1-bath, you're going to cater to a very specific part of the market, which is a transitioning family. You want a tenant that's going to be there long-term. 3-bed, 2-bath, covered garage, even if it's carport, I'm okay with that. And please no gravel driveways, a nice paved driveway, a good landscape, and a decent school district is what you're looking for.
That's sound advice right there. And that's great in terms of, what I'm looking for right now, right? You're kind of clarifying in my mind. This is a very selfish podcast, Abhi. I'm just really listening to myself talk and getting information from you.
I was looking up data. So I'm trying to pull up some data on Philly while we're connecting, so I can talk to it a little more and identify even some communities for you. But nonetheless, so let's keep going for sure. But absolutely, make it as selfish as you want. It's your podcast. You're allowed.
Well, just to give you an example. So we moved last year. I bought a new property. We held on to our townhome as an investment property. And seeing the prices that are now in my community, it's kind of outrageous. You know, we had to think about selling, but the money was so cheap when we refinanced. You know, we did a 15-year, got an incredible interest rate, and I said, I'm never letting go of this thing if I can help it, because it just makes all the sense in the world to hold it. But the prices, you know, I love my community as an investment community. It's a great community to invest in, but now these prices are becoming, you know, almost punitive to go out and buy in. So, you know, you have to look, you know, for those other markets, other neighborhoods. So, you know, my next question to you is, if I am a realtor, and you kind of answered this earlier, but if I am a realtor investor, maybe I want to get into the investment game. I'm on the younger side. You know, I'm starting out in my career. I'm making okay money, but I don't have a ton of capital to put down on an investment property. Do you still recommend that somebody in that situation invest? Do you recommend that they go out and try and buy an investment property if they don't have, let's say, you know, 25, 30% to put down on a property?
No, absolutely not. You need savings, right? Like, this is when the sage advice of Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman should be like, you should have them right on your right shoulder, and they should be saying, hey, they should be telling you in your ear, 6 months of savings, contribute to a Roth, you know, like, have that. That's super important, because it's not just a 20% or 25% down on a $100,000 property. It's, what if the roof goes bad? Mm-hmm. What if something like that happens? You need your beep bucket, right? Like, that's what you need. You need your crap bucket. I don't know if you have like a little bleeper audio effect, so I did that for you.
I can
see that? This is proactive thinking from one podcast host to the other.
I appreciate the self beep.
Yeah. No problem, Jason. I got you, man. So that's one of the things. You need a contingency bucket, and the bank isn't just going to hand you over a contingency bucket. They're going to say, okay, we're going to look at value. We're going to lend 80% of cost or 75% of cost, depending on which kind of bank you go to. If you go to private money lenders, they'll probably be a little more expensive. They'll be a little more aggressive on your LTC or loan to cost requirements, or even your LTV or loan to value requirements on what they'll lend to you as a borrower. But listen, if you don't have contingency of at least $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 roughly, depending on the type of property you're buying, then I would definitely be concerned. And here, two things. If you're buying a rental, always get a survey. That's number one. And number two, always, for the love of God, always get an inspection, a third-party inspection. If you don't get that, you are setting yourself up for failure. What if a roof, you bought a house thinking, you bought your investment property, think it's going to be the greatest thing in the world. You forgot to do an inspection and you forgot to do a survey. Now your shed in the back is encroaching on the neighbor's lawn, neighbor's yard, and they were just waiting for somebody else to buy it to like now sue this person, which is you, and your roof just fell apart because you didn't know, or you had cracks in your foundation. Far too many people, I've heard far too many horror stories of folks just not covering their basis. If you had just paid a couple of $100 to get the survey and $250 or $300 or whatever it costs to get the inspection, you would have saved yourself thousands of dollars in attorney's fees and repair costs on that investment property. So cover your bases, guys. It just makes sense.
And we see that time and time again in this market. I mean, we see it throughout the country, and I can only speak for, what I'm used to. And I've been telling the story to, talking to some of my realtor friends that inspections are actually coming back into play again, right? That's how we can see like a slow shift in the market. And it's like, oh, I remember that. I remember having to negotiate inspections. That's, from a listing standpoint, I'm like, oh man, this has been bliss for the past 2 years. Every offer that's submitted is waiving inspections, albeit that's probably not the smart way to go, but especially on the investment side,
especially on the investment side. And there are private money lenders today that will also waive certain things, some of the things that you mentioned, depending on the private money lender. And they'll say, of course, I'll give you, $150,000 to buy this property that's worth $225,000. But that doesn't mean that just because they're giving you financing, you don't do your homework, right? Like, this is me pointing my finger at you, right? Like, do your homework. It's that simple. And then the sage advice of Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman goes away. right? Because they're not going to encourage that you buy investment property necessarily. I think maybe Dave Ramsey only recently has talked about the FIRE movement and maybe talked about single family rentals briefly, but he's a guy that says all debt is bad. Bro, no, it's not. No, it's not. There's a difference between good debt and bad debt. And if you, Dave Ramsey, don't know the difference, then you shouldn't be on the national stage talking about how people should build wealth. That's the problem that I have with Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman, right? Average Americans and even real estate agents, and even people like you and me, like Americans, it is the Americans' duty. It is our duty as citizens of this country to figure out a way to build massive wealth. And if we don't do that, nobody else is going to do that for us. Nobody cares more about your money than you do. And why listen to old school ideologies of investing? What are you going to do? You're going to buy ETFs for the remainder of your life? How did Mitt Romney? Do you tell me this? How did Mitt Romney? Do you remember the Romney Obama presidential election? And Mitt Romney opened up his Roth IRA and said, "I have $99 million." Right, and that was a big point of discussion.
Yep.
Do you think? My question to Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey, you can cut this video and send it to their PR people if you want. Hey, do you think they did that by investing $6,000 a year for 300 years and somehow Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey have found the fountain of youth, or drinking carrot juice and getting Botox injections? That's they've been around for 350 years? No, of course not. They're very specific, deliberate wealth building strategies that Mitt Romney and other top 1%ers of this country are using to destroy. They're using to destroy is the wrong word, to dominate their long-term wealth. And you real estate agents in Philly right now have the opportunity to do that, because guess what? You have access to more data. You have access to information. You know what questions to ask. You already know how to market yourself to homeowners or home sellers. So you can have the conversation, you understand data, and you're creative. There's nothing stopping you from investing in real estate. And there's just one thing else that you have to do is execute for your financial future. If I'm an agent in Philly and I'm thinking the 10 year, if I look at myself 10, 15 years from now, this is what the 10 to 15 year self, my future self, is telling me right now. Go buy property. How many times do I have to slap myself in the face to get that point across? And if you're watching this and if you don't have property yet, or you're kind of maybe-ish kind of gonna happen, yeah, that's right. Slap yourself in the face.
Yeah, I think, and what I was going to say is it's always that fear and apprehension, right? Oh, the fear of the unknown. We've never done it before, now that I've done it, one time, I have the bug. I want to buy multiple properties and have different holdings and everything like that. So, as you look into properties and you do your due diligence, you talk about inspections, you talk about surveys. What are some of the red flags that you look for personally when you're considering purchasing a property? And that is outside of, the market that you're looking in. The property specifically, what are some red flags that may steer you away from certain properties and not others?
Crime in the area is a big one. School districts, of course, but the property itself, HVAC, roof, plumbing, electrical.
Okay. That's a very simplistic answer, and it makes total sense.
Yeah, it's that simple. Renters aren't, unless you live in a luxury market, like a downtown Chicago in the Loop, or New York, in very specific areas in New York. You don't have to go above and beyond for your tenants. Treat them as human beings, not as tenants. That's rule number one. Rule number two, you don't have to paint, you don't have to get super expensive paint. You don't have to get super expensive appliances. Wolf Appliances for a rental. You guys are laughing at me for bringing that up. That has happened. I've seen that happen. And you don't need that. Frigidaire is fine. Not a big deal. And as long as things are updated, things are newish, you're totally fine. If I'm looking at a property and the property's cabinets are a little outdated, fine. Throw a coat of paint over the cabinets, paint them white. You don't need to go out and get new cabinets. If you have black appliances, okay, you might want to upgrade to stainless steel. It's just better. It's going to be a better long-term investment anyway. So go do that. LVT for the floors. If you just have carpeted floors, that's fine. Swap it out. Swap it out for LVT, luxury vinyl tile. It's not going to be that expensive. You're not breaking the bank, and it's a nice, good, upgraded look for your tenant. Your tenant's going to be there forever. Do you want a tenant that's going to be there forever, or do you want a tenant that's going to leave after a year because, like, yeah, this management sucks, the property's terrible, and it smells gross? You don't need that.
Mm-hmm. So assuming that we make these investments, our real estate holdings start to grow over time, does your investment strategy shift as the real estate holdings grow? Do you come in with the same mindset? Does your mindset shift towards other possibilities? How do you approach your investing at this point as those holdings grow, like I said?
Yeah, it just depends. As you said in the beginning, I'm kind of your eternal entrepreneur. So I love investing in businesses. It's just one of the things that I do. So my world, Jason, is twofold. One, I invest in businesses, and two, I invest in real estate. I invest in businesses. This can be a startup. This can be a plumbing business. This can be a dental office. This could be an urgent care center. Whatever is going to make me money, right? Like, I want my money working super, super hard for me. So that's this bucket over here. Then I'll take my passive K1 and the K1, I push it to a single family rental. Do I look at maybe a triplex or a quad or a duplex? Absolutely. All of the above. Am I looking at like a Kansas City, Kansas, or an Indianapolis and diversifying my holdings across the Central Plains? Yeah, sure. Am I going to look at multifamily operators to invest in? Absolutely. Well, do I ever find myself in a position where, like, I want to own my own multifamily apartment complex? Probably not. You'll see me in person, right? I'm 5'5" on 140 pounds wet. Like, I know what a sledgehammer looks like, and I'm the best white collar worker ever. I'm just not going to lift it up. I'm the guy that's going to go to the gym and decide to lift 5-pound dumbbells to do bicep curls instead of 20 pounds because it's a fifth of the 20-pound dumbbell, right? I'm already doing weights at a discount. So I'm not the guy that's going to physically do hard labor. I mean, people like us, we're too pretty. We belong in front of the camera. Let's be honest, right? Like, hair like yours. Camera.
I was going to say, you may be the only guest that has thicker and more luxuriant hair than me. I've been, that's one thing I can say about myself is I've been blessed with a good head of hair. But yes, I think you may have me beat. I will say, being that you are 5'5", I think you may be the only podcast guest that is also shorter than me. I'm 5'8", 160. Well, I weighed myself today, 167 pounds. So
there you go. Nice.
So that is a small little tidbit for the listening audience that we are both smallish human beings.
Smallish human being. I like it. Yeah. I mean, I do recommend, like, don't get me wrong, I hold a portfolio of ETFs, of exchange traded funds. I also hold a portfolio of index funds. If you want to go learn more about that, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a real estate nut. If you want to go talk to your financial advisor about it after reading Unshakable and Money, both by Tony Robbins, and then maybe Turning the Corner and reading Ray Dalio's book Principles, go for it. Like, there's nothing stopping you from investing in long-term equities to benefit from what the United States is doing. Even if you want to buy SPY, it trails the S&P 500. Great. But there your money's going to earn between 10, 11, 12, 13% year over year. But that doesn't mean you can't supplement your investment dollars, your strategies by investing in single family rentals. And as long as you achieve a 9, what I mean by that is you have a specific rental yield and you have a specific HPA, home price appreciation. If your rental yield is going to be 6 to 7 to 8, your home price appreciation traditionally average across America is going to be 3.5 a year. Not in this market, but generally speaking, long term, I think you're going to do fairly well for yourself. If you happen to get duplexes, tris, and quads, yay. If you happen to invest in multifamily, yay. But you'll have those opportunities naturally come to you because of the conversations that you will have with other realtors, with other agents, with other brokers in your area. And then you'll be surprised. You might have an extra $20 or $25 or $30,000 that Suze Yorman and Dave Ramsey don't know about, that you'll invest in some salmon farm in Kansas City because you identified a trend of Americans eating a crap ton of salmon on an annual basis. And if you invest $25,000 in a salmon farm, you can get a 30% yield over a 2-year time frame. all joking aside, that's an example of a strategy you can use. If you don't know what type of investor you are, and you're looking at like, man, what's my personality? You can either be a Wheel of Fortune kind of guy or gal, or you're going to be a Star Trek person. Wheel of Fortune, you want consistent income. And for many of you, 5 properties, you're done. Fantastic. That's great. If you want to accumulate some more, that's cool. And if you want to maybe flip a little bit and live the Star Trek life, and you want to be like Chip and Joanna Gaines on their new show, without the shiplack, I think that's a phenomenal opportunity too. You can do that. Just remember, capital gains are going up next year. So that should also factor into your strategy. And something else you should look at are qualified opportunity zones. If you have a little bit of cash and you happen to inherit Tiger Woods' golf set, and you end up selling that for $100,000, you can take that gain and push it into a qualified opportunity zone fund within a period of 180 days. And as long as that QOZ invests in a qualified opportunity zone property investment and the necessary rules are followed, you get to step up in basis of your tax liability, which is fantastic for those that have a long-term view on real estate in an area, and you're looking at diversifying your portfolio, and you also have a lot of tax liability. I said a lot of words. I'm going to shut up now.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's like drinking from a fire hose talking to you about investing. Yeah. And I feel like, so you are obviously super into investing, right? Specifically, you talk about businesses, you talk about real estate. Is there ever a time when you sit out the market and you don't invest in real estate? You pretty much answered that question earlier, but I just want to know, has there ever been a time where you're like, you know what? I'm not going to do it right now. Doesn't make sense.
No, especially in the tertiary markets. Okay. Like in the primary markets, I haven't purchased anything in Atlanta for about 2 years, 2.5 years. I just saw some trends, and it started getting super expensive. I'm sorry, maybe about 1.5 years. It got super expensive, and I don't ride the wave. Like I'm the kind of surfer that's going to go up and down, just watch other people ride the big wave and crash or successfully ride the wave. I'm that guy. I'm going to wait for my wave, and my wave doesn't exist in primary Marketsville, right? My wave is in tertiary Marketsville, like your Indianapolis, like your East Lansing. And I'm a huge college town guy. Like I love college towns, like some of the fringes of the college towns. I mean, college football is a religion for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Penn State is a really big thing. Wharton is a really big thing in Pennsylvania. Like I would absolutely start taking a look at the fringes of those college towns and seeing if there's opportunity. Columbus, Ohio. Listen, I'm a Michigan guy. I was speaking to a crowd, and I'm like, hey, how many of you parents have children that attend Ohio State University? And many of them put their hands up, and I said, hey, thanks for paying my rent on time and make my yields look good to my investors. Like, it's fantastic. I just don't care, and I exited stage left saying, go roll tide. Like, I just don't, I'm so agnostic when it comes to college football, but I love buying paraphernalia for those tenants because they're paying my rent. Pay my rent. That's all I care about.
And I was going to ask you that question, not hating on Ohio again, but being that
let's do it.
You're an Ann Arbor guy, right? So from my standpoint, we hate the Dallas Cowboys around here. It just comes with the territory, right? Now, if I had to invest in suburban Dallas, I don't know if I could bring myself to do it. I got to be honest with you. I mean, I guess, money's green everywhere, but I don't know if I could have Cowboy fans living in my properties. I may drive up a little bit on them. Yeah.
I don't care. I legit, hey, what did I just say? Pay my rent.
Yes, you do.
I don't care what you believe. It's just like religion. Are you a Christian? Are you a Jew? Are you a Muslim? Are you a Hindu? Or what do you practice? I pay my rent. Mm-hmm. Okay. Like I legitimately do not care. Like I don't watch college football. I don't watch hockey. I'm far too busy identifying business and real estate opportunities to buy. Like I have zero interest in blowing 8 hours on a Saturday over beers and football when I have different priorities, right? Like I'm just not the guy. But I will stuff my face with a good Philly cheesesteak. That's something that I will fly to Philly, meet you, and just, get me some hot sauce, and I'm going to dive into a pool of cheese. Like, I'm totally down with that.
Well, you are definitely playing to our audience. That's for sure. So I wanted to end on this anecdote. So when you were on the Friday Forum, you started out, and for people who didn't catch the Friday Forum, I want them to listen to your story about how the song "Don't Stop Believin'" became a rallying cry kind of for your career. Can you get into the story as to why that became your rallying cry and why that was so important to kind of building your career in investments?
Yeah. So I started investing in real estate in 2002-ish, 2003-ish. I'd saved up a little bit of money, and I said, I'm going to put it out to the universe. I just figured out what this intention manifestation muscle was. I'm going to put it out to the universe. I'm going to start investing in real estate. Great. I had a mentor back then, ended up, long story short, wasn't the best mentor. I'm not going to get there just yet. Or it's too long for this podcast, but I will tell you that story that you asked. So I was doing a couple of flips in inner city Detroit, and I get a call from my contractor, and on my Motorola V600 flip phone, the one that had the thing on the LED on the outside, and like it lit up and it went absolutely crazy. And he left me a voicemail, and because I couldn't text at the time, and text for like 75 cents a text, and I got yelled at by my parents. And he left me a voicemail, and he's like, "Hey, Abhi, I need you to take a look at your property in inner city Detroit. I have to go pick up my kids, and it's like 7:00. I left the shop back for you." So after all my classes, it's like 8 o'clock in the evening, I take my disgusting Honda Civic. It's like a 1992 Honda Civic DX. It smells like mold, Flintstone car. And I drive it to inner city Detroit. By the time I get to inner city Detroit, this is in the fall, and many of you Pennsylvanians know that, hey, weather changes in a heartbeat, and it could be sunny one moment and a blizzard the next, which was the case this evening. When I was driving to inner city Detroit, by the time I pull into my property, I hang a left, I hit the mailbox because I couldn't even see it, and it's a complete blizzard. I walk in the front door, I see the shop vac, and I hear running water. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what the shop vac's for. That's great. By the time I figure out what's going on, it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I go downstairs to the basement, and I hear running water, go downstairs to the basement, and I'm like neck deep in water. Like, for me, being a short guy, it's like up to here, right? Like I'm neck deep up to here in water. And I'm alone, I'm cold, I'm wet at this point. I don't have a change of clothes, and my mentor is nowhere to be found. My contractor is nowhere to be found. My parents have no idea what's going on. My brother hates me, and my peers are wondering when I'm going to make it back for the group class assignment. So like, I had everything going against me. Universe hated me. I'm sure God was like, you're messing up, bro. It's probably, what's going on. And I muster up some courage to start knocking on doors, just asking for help. And what do you not do as a brown kid in inner city Detroit? Knock on doors. Like, you just don't do that. A couple of doors I knocked on. It was a like, yeah, moving on. This Halloween party is going next door. And I'm making light of the situation only because I generally fight back tears sharing the story, and it's a super vulnerable moment for me because I hate this story so much. I hate. I'm
sorry to make you tell it.
No. I hate it, but I also love it looking back now. So eventually, there's a neighbor that comes over, and we toil away until like 2 or 3 o'clock at night, and nothing happens. We're not able to get the water out of the basement. He goes home, and I go to the liquor store, convince the guy just to give me a bottle of Jack Daniels, and Jack and I have a long conversation that night. So I wake up in the morning and I have to go to class. And my entire thesis behind Make It Rain, my book, Make It Rain, Real Estate Investing for Real Estate Professionals, which everybody listening, and you, of course, Jason, you'll get a free copy of. I'll make sure you get a PDF of it. That my thesis behind this book was this story, in that in that moment, I was afraid. I didn't know if I had a future. My back was against the wall. And literally, I'm sitting on the floor right now and my back was against this wall. And I go upstairs that night. I'm like, I fell asleep like this because I had no master bed. I had nothing. And, heat rises. So I'm in my second story master bedroom, or what's supposed to be the master, just kind of rocking myself to sleep. In that moment, I decided I can only go up from here. I decided if I were to make it, because for me back then, it was an if, not a when. If I make it, I'm going to make sure that other people, other investors, other folks cannot make the same mistakes that I did. And the following morning, I get back in my car, I brush all the snow off, and I start driving back to class. And the one song that's playing is Journey's "Don't Stop Believing." And I thought it was the perfect song for me to feel in that moment, because nobody had my back and I didn't even believe in myself. And that was a super dark moment for me. I eventually ended up wholesaling. I just, assigned those properties to another investor. They ended up, I don't know if they made money on it or not, but I essentially said, this is never, ever happening to me again. And that's the story.
I'll tell you what, despite all that, here you are, and I think that is the reason why I wanted you to tell that story. And I'm sorry that, I'm sorry to make it a painful process for you.
It's okay.
But I do think that it's important for people to listen to that story and be inspired by the fact that, again, here you are. And despite all that, you have made it. And despite all that, you have thrived. And there's no reason why anyone out there listening can't do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
With some hard work, some knowledge, doing your due diligence, trying to make it happen for yourself. Like you said, building wealth. And, I have my mother's words in my ear all the time. You don't make money selling real estate. You make money buying real estate, right? So thanks, Mom, for that.
Thanks, Mom.
I truly do believe that. I want to retire at an earlier age than probably a lot of real estate agents retire. And that's just truth be told. A lot of us are selling well beyond, what we consider our retirement years. And just for me personally, there's no right or wrong answer here, but I don't want to do that. And my way to not do that is by investing in real estate. Abhi, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And before we get out of here, where can people find you online?
Yeah, the best way to do it is to hit me on LinkedIn. For a lot of agents, y'all just not using LinkedIn properly. I love talking about wealth building and business automation and how to grow a business on LinkedIn. So if you want to read some of the articles I have there, great. If you want to engage and just have a conversation, we talked a lot today about the basics, the foundational understanding of real estate, and the differences between good and bad debt. And then, of course, there are 10 wealth building strategies that I talk about as well, depending on your cash situation, kind of depending on where you want to be. Feel free to get in touch. You can email me at hello@abhigolhar.com. You can find me online there too at Abhi Golhar. And if you don't know how to spell it, just start typing in ABH and Google should autofill it for you. So there you go. Anywhere online.
Thank you, sir. And make sure to listen to Abhi's podcast, the Think Realty podcast. I'll tell you, I listened probably to about 6 episodes last night, and I was blown away just with the content, what I learned in just that brief period of time listening to the podcast. It's great stuff if you want to know about investing, pretty much anything in that investment sphere. Abhi is the man when it comes to that. So thank you again for your time, Abhi. I truly appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
You got it.
That was the conversation this week with Abhi Golhar, and I gotta say, he is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to real estate investing or investing in general. He definitely is someone you want to pick the brain of. So it was great talking to him. Here are a few takeaways that I had from my conversation with Abhi this week. Number one, if you are thinking about investing in real estate, you're looking for an investment property of some sort, maybe it's a flip, maybe it's a duplex, a triplex, whatever you're looking to invest in, make sure that you're doing it from a place of financial strength. I know a lot of us want to do some real estate investing. Sometimes we get a little out front of our skis, as the term goes. Make sure that you're able to put that 25 to 30% down and have some extra cash should something go wrong with the property. We want to plan ahead, we want to strategize, and we want to make sure that we're fiscally sound to do so. Number two, in talking with Abhi, he made one thing crystal clear in my mind, something that I've been struggling with, and that is this the market to invest in? Right? I think many of us ask that question to ourselves because the prices have jumped and have increased so fast over a short period of time. But I asked Abhi in this interview point blank, is there ever a market that you don't invest in? And the answer is no. I think you just have to make the right investment and do your due diligence. So, regardless of the market, Abhi thinks that you should be investing in real estate. And if you're holding on to real estate long term, chances are it is going to appreciate in value. So there is always a market to invest in, including this one. And lastly, number three, Abhi shared his inspirational story with us, a very painful story for him personally, about investing early in his career and how a couple of properties that he had bought didn't pan out for him. In fact, it ended up being a disaster. He had to offload them wholesale. It was a really, really tough situation to be in, but that didn't stop Abhi from moving forward with investing in real estate. And now he's become kind of a juggernaut in that sphere. And so don't let that stop you. Take the leap, have the courage to invest in real estate and keep investing in real estate. Even if one doesn't work out for you, the next one will. Well, that's it for the podcast this week. Thank you for joining us. And on a side note, we are taking some time off for the holiday coming up. So I just want to wish you and yours a very happy Thanksgiving. I hope all of you are safe and healthy. And we will be back in early December with a new episode, a new guest. So again, if you need to reach out to me, you want to hear a specific topic that we haven't covered yet, jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. This is Jason Ostrowski saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you next time on the Everything Real Estate Podcast.